I'm going to release the memo. A senior White House official told NBC News yesterday, quote, I doubt there will be any redactions of the memo. Republicans say the memo showed the FBI relied on an opposition research dossier funded by the Democrats to get FISA surveillance of former Trump advisor Carter Page, who the campaign alternately embraced and distanced itself from. Democrats say it distorts classified materials to undermine special counsel Robert Mueller's probe into Russian involvement in the 2016 election. The president has three options for getting the memo out. The first is to simply declassify it and release it. The second, to declassify it and send it to the House for release. And the third is to not declassify, but to tell the House he won't object if they do. While the security review of the memo is only a few days old, new reporting says President Trump has been fighting to make it public for at least 2 weeks. House Freedom Caucus Chairman Mark Meadows tells the Washington Post that he and Congressman Jim Jordan brought it to Trump's attention on January 18th during a call about the government shutdown. A presidential advisor tells the Post, quote, there was never any hesitation. The president was resolved on this. He was not going to be persuaded. He wanted it out. In the report, citing people familiar with his discussions, President Trump told aides and confidants he believes the memo would indicate his claim early last year that the Russia investigation overseen by Robert Mueller is a witch hunt. The president said he thought the release of the memo would help build a public argument against Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein's handling of the case, and suggested the memo might give him the justification to fire Rosenstein or to make other changes at the Justice Department, which he had complained was not sufficiently loyal to him. So, Clint, take all that President Trump had sort of made up his mind the moment he heard about this memo, that this was going to be helpful to him. Which of those scenarios do you see as most likely? Will it be declassified immediately? Will it be pushed to the House for a decision on it? Will it be released with redactions? What do you think is going to happen here?
Just knowing Trump and his actions over the last year, I would say he'll push it to the House because he's always trying to be in control but also distance himself from things. Right. He's a good player in that sense. But also when it goes to the House, then it also gets shared blame across all these congressmen. They can all say, oh, it was, the Republicans that did this, it was Nunes, it had to come out. But what ultimately will happen is it's this hashtag hysteria that we see on the Republican side. And it's classic subversion through information annihilation. There will be no transparency in this because this is cherry-picked information. Right. There ultimately has to be more sources or reasons for going up on that FISA collection than that single source. It's trying to discredit the entire investigation through the dossier, which, oh, by the way, when we've gone through the dossier, seems to really play out, and it's from a credible source, Steele, who had contributed to the FIFA investigation. So ultimately, the outcome of this won't be hysteria. It won't be transparency. It'll be some hysteria. But ultimately, for Americans, it's apathy because they start tuning this out. You don't know what's true. You can't make sense of it. And this doesn't even speak to the damage it's done to our investigative agencies.
Yeah, not specific, but still accomplishes its goal of muddying the waters of this investigation. Joe, there's also reporting from Axios and the Washington Post of concern within the Trump administration. The memo may not be as compelling as some congressional Republicans have made it out to be. Congressmen like New York's Lee Zeldin.
It's going to be showing misconduct on the part of top people at the DOJ and the FBI. You're going to see a need for a change to certain practices up there. There's going to be a need for a change of certain personnel towards the top.
I'm sure. I wonder if he's even read it before. But, Donnie Deutsch, this may muddy the water a little bit. But again, if you're running a campaign and you're running against somebody that's claimed they've been a law and order person, I tell you, at least what I would do, I'm curious what you do as an advertising guy. I'd say, here is somebody that was told that a doctored memo released was extraordinarily reckless by the FBI and by Donald Trump's own Justice Department. But they did it politically because they care more about being subservient to Donald Trump than they care about the national security of the United States of America. And hey, don't believe me. Believe the Federal Bureau of Investigation's director that Donald Trump picked and Congress approved. Don't believe me. Believe Donald Trump's Justice Department. I'm sorry. If I've got a guy on a debate that's approved that, I'm going to chase him around and bloody him with those facts for 2 hours on a debate stage.
Joe, here's the ad, and you laid it out. I would tomorrow find guys as credible as Clint, guys who are not in the FBI anymore, or the DOJ, guys who have devoted their life to this country. And I'd have about 10 guys in an ad, 10 men and women standing forward and go, look, we've given our lives to our country. This president would and does do anything to make us less safe. Going forward, are you going to bet on the people that keep this country safe, the men and women that have lost their lives, that dedicated their lives in the FBI, or a reality TV guy? And I mean, that's the choice you put in front of the American people. This is so flawed in that Carter Page has been in the sights since 2013, that this is all about let's whack Rod Rosenstein. Donald Trump knows the noose is tightening. He knows he cannot directly go after Mueller, and that the only one between him and Mueller is Rosenstein. And this is what this is about. And I think Donald Trump lives in his own universe and does not understand, to your earlier point, that the American people are not stupid. And they can see through this. And I do think this is one more instance also where if I am a president, the last people I want to set up a war, a literal war with, is Department of Justice and the intelligence community. And this is a declaration of war.
Well, and Mike, this also is a moment in time where I think most people have stopped fearing Donald Trump. They understand what Donald Trump is. Stop being shocked by Donald Trump, I guess I should say. And instead, fear that the Republican Congress is so compliant that they will allow misleading information out in a recklessly dangerous document, according to Trump's FBI and Trump's Department of Justice, and put all of this actually on Carter Page. Like, that somehow Americans are going to be shocked that there was an extension of an investigation into Carter Page when even the Russians had some choice words to say about Page. This is, again, Mike, I'm just flabbergasted that the Republicans would be as clueless as they are in their mad pursuit to enable Donald Trump to do the stupidest, most self-destructive things.
Well, Joe, I mean, it's part of a pattern that they've held to, they've clung to for many months now. I mean, this idea that they are more loyal to their own political party than to the Constitution of the United States or to the nation's security interests is astounding. And it is well past the time that we speak fact about Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House. His legacy, his career, his reputation, that it once was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that is over. That is over. He is married the non-facts of this story. And Frank Figliuzzi, one of the things about this story that stands out to a lot of people is the rhetoric surrounding the release of this memo from the chairman of the committee, Devin Nunes. And if you track the rhetoric and you match it to the definition of obstruction of justice, which includes the word intent, wouldn't you be sort of on the right track to get to Devin Nunes wondering about, is he now obstructing justice?
Well, I'm particularly zeroed in on the transcript of the testimony that was released by Congressman Schiff, where they asked Congressman Nunes, did anyone talk to the White House about crafting this memo? Any conspiracy there, any give and take engagement with the White House on the release of the memo? And there was essentially a non-response. He wouldn't take further questions on this. So if you look at the possibility that they're in conspiracy with the White House on crafting the content or the timing of the release or nature of the release, then indeed you are meeting the intent element of the statute for obstruction of justice. I also think we should be really tuned in on what happens today if it's released with regard to the director of the FBI. Is Chris Wray, who's now being put between a rock and a hard place, right? It's kind of like dishonestly asking somebody, when did you stop beating your wife? The mere fact that you have to rebut that, the mere fact that you have to come out and repeat the allegation is damaging, and you're repeating things that you don't want out in public. So will Chris Wray come out today, if it's released, and line by line start rebutting, in which case we have an all-out face-off between the White House and the FBI, or will he quietly accept what it is and behind the scenes start working to poke holes in it? Thirdly, are we going to see the Democrats release their version that they've not been allowed to release that interprets the memo quite differently? Things to watch today.
Well, and of course, Frank, I want to go back to the conspiracy of justice. You look at what has happened with Devin Nunes, and you look not only what's happened here, where he obstructing justice. You look not only what's happened with this memo, the fact that it is clear that he and his staff members have been conspiring with Donald Trump for the purposes of, as Donald Trump has admitted, for the purposes of undermining the credibility of the FBI and undermining the credibility of the investigation against the president and the White House. You can take that. You can also look at what Nunes did after Donald Trump lied about Barack Obama tapping Trump Towers. And the fact that Devin Nunes there held his press conference, claimed he had information, but he didn't have information. He rushed over to the White House. He got information from the White House, and then he held a press conference at the White House and said, aha, here it is. When he had claimed that he was going over to the White House to share some important information that he had uncovered on unmasking. It ended up being a lie. It ended up that he was nothing more than a courier for the White House. And it just may be, if he is a courier for the White House here, to help Donald Trump, who has admitted the past couple of days he's doing this to undermine the investigation, to undermine the credibility of the investigators against him. Doesn't that line Devin Nunes up as somebody that should be looked at for obstructing this investigation?
I'm in agreement, and in fact, if you want further evidence of his actual intention, which is so critical to the obstruction statute, just look at normal oversight versus what he's doing. This is an oversight. I spent 25 years in the FBI. I served as assistant director. During my time as assistant director, I lost count of the number of times I went to the Hill. I briefed House and Senate Intelligence Committees, Judiciary, Homeland Security Committees. Everybody in the Hoover Building on Pennsylvania Avenue understands that Congress represents the people and they oversee the FBI. But this is an oversight, just as Paul Ryan is claiming it's oversight. This is friendly fire aimed directly at the FBI. Why do I say that? If Congressman Nunes truly had the intention of helping out the FBI, getting their act together, correcting the record for a bad FISA affidavit, he could go to the FISA judge, the chief judge of the FISA court, the Department of Justice Inspector General, or hand his allegation directly to Christopher Wray, who's been appointed by Trump. Instead, he's waving around publicly a very dramatic memo that he's going to release essentially in the form of a press release. It clearly goes toward his intent, and his intent appears to be obstruction.